Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday. How's everybody doing? Good to see you all. I have a new iPad. Oh, look at that. See, I can play it off of there, or I can play this. This is off the air, or I can play this. Classics. It's still a little low. I wonder if I can increase the volume with the volume buttons. Where are the volume buttons? There we go. Well, but does that actually do anything? Oh, yes, it does. Okay. Very good. What's happening, everybody? Patrick Beja will be joining us in a few minutes. Live from Europe. I think he's in France. Mostly he's been in France these days. I didn't confirm that, so I'm just going to keep it to Europe just in case. Who knows? Maybe he's in Italy, Germany, or Luxembourg, or San Marino. But usually he's in either Finland or France, and more likely France these days. But yeah, I don't know if you realize Patrick has brought back the Phileas Club with a new format. That's one of the things that led me to want to invite him onto ye old Friday Hangout. He's got a new take on the Phileas Club. If you remember the old Phileas Club, it was Patrick, usually a couple of guests, talking about the world from their perspectives, right? So we'd have people usually from all around the world, but more often Europe and North America than elsewhere. But he would try very hard, and it's difficult with time zones and everything to get people from around the world. Got Turkey on a lot from Saudi Arabia, and they would talk about what's going on in their parts of the world. Then he had kids, and coordinating something like that as it was already difficult. So I imagine that was one of many reasons why Phileas Club went on a hiatus. But I like what he's done to bring it back. It's just him at the beginning talking about things from his perspective, which I always enjoy hearing. And then he takes letters to Phileas, and his thoughts are also a letter to Phileas. Phileas is the sort of imaginary host of the show that is receiving the letters. Patrick has his Phileas letter. Although Phileas also I'll have to ask him about this. Phileas also kind of feels like the audience as well. And then he'll have other people who will record things. I've done it a couple of times myself. I plan to do it again sometime. Oh, am I not on the right mic? Thank you, Zoe. It shouldn't have changed. Wow. So I've been saying all this stuff, and you've been like, Tom, you're from far across the. Here we go. That will be better, I'm sure. No longer am I speaking down to the ground. Sorry about that. I've done Patrick a disservice with the far away. I don't know. Were you hearing table noise too? As I pounded, because the mic that was being picked up was over here. Why would you do that? Why would you do that, StreamYard? Why? Why would you pick the wrong mic? Patrick, we are live, so if it's cool if I pull you right into the live stream, give me the peace sign. Okay, very good. Hi, Patrick Beja. How you doing?
Hey, I am doing well.
You came in just in time for me to have fixed my microphone.
I made sure I would not do it any other way.
Thank you.
So you have Tom Merritt at Ace Detect. Wait, I should change.
Oh yeah, you can put a little @ symbol or a website, whatever you like.
Is it at Ace Detect on Twitter or how?
Well, there is no Twitter anymore. But yes, it's at Ace Detect on all the things. That's me on everywhere except Blue Sky. Okay. Blue Sky, I'm TomMerritt.com.
See, I couldn't get not Patrick on Blue Sky either.
Well, I have
some
Ace
person
Detect on
took it.
Blue Sky.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But when you verify by domain, it overrides your username with your domain.
Yes, exactly. So that is what happened to me. And at that point, they didn't reserve your previous name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I lost it.
So you had it, but you lost it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That was not the best user flow. Well, I was just explaining to people before you joined about the change in the Phileas Club, like from what it used to be to the current Dear Phileas way of doing things, which I really enjoy. And
Thank you.
The one question I had is Phileas like an imaginary person, or is it the audience, or is it both? When you're writing your letter to Phileas.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an imaginary person you're writing to.
Sure. Yeah.
Except it could be anyone in the audience. It's like the stand-in, how do you say? The stand-in for the person in the audience you're speaking to directly.
Yeah.
And
so it's not a little bit of both, really.
It's a little bit of both. It's not very like set in stone because it just happened. When I first relaunched the show, I figured, okay, I'm going to do it. I want to talk to people or just say what I feel. And so I just started recording. And it turned into this idea that I would send letters and other people would also send letters. And then you ask the question, to whom will we send letters? And then it seems natural that it would be like Phileas because it's the Phileas Club.
Yeah, so. Phileas is the host of the club. But there's a little Phileas in all of us, I like to think.
I guess so, yeah.
And a little fog. Definitely a lot more fog.
A lot of fog right now. Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, literally the fog of war.
It's so funny. I show up and it's like, hey, how's it going? And like, like we haven't talked to each other for, I don't know, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And Zoe Brings Bacon is in the chat room. And it's like, I'm home.
Yeah,
it's
old times.
Very funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that we haven't communicated, but you're right. We haven't actually talked in a while. How you been?
Podcasting. I'm okay. My son has been a bit sick over the past week, and then my wife was sick for the past 2 days. So I was like, "Ooh, I hope I can make it to the Friday hangout." And she was feeling better today. So
okay, that's good.
But no, I'm good. I was reflecting on this this morning. Like, for I guess 4 years after my son was born, every show I would do, I was like, having children is so hard. And like I would complain about everything. And and I noticed that I haven't done it in a long while. So I guess that means it's going better.
Is it going better, or did you just get used to it?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to, so many of our friends have kids too. And Veronica was saying when we had our puppy, we got a puppy now almost 2 years ago. She was like, having a puppy is harder than having a child, but for a shorter period of time. She's like, your puppy will be harder than a child for like 6 months. And then then it gets easier, and then it's easy. Your child will stay hard as long as they're alive, as far as Veronica knew, because her child was like 3 or 4 years old at the time. She's like, it just doesn't. There's different kinds of hard, but it's just sustained hard for a long time.
And a puppy is harder? I guess Veronica's it depends maybe on the child.
So she was saying from her perspective, I'm not saying that, but she was like, I think a puppy is harder, but it's for like just those couple of months. And then once they hit about 6 months, because usually you don't get them until they're 2 months old if you're adopting, and you might even get them later. But once they hit 6 months, then it starts to get easier. She's like, I think the puppy is harder for those couple of months, but she's like, overall, the kid is definitely harder.
I've heard a lot of people like, I don't want to be dismissive of anyone, but like there are different experiences with children, different, like you can get, because I also got like both models kind of. My son was exceedingly hard.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
For a long time. And my daughter was like, it was a little bit challenging, but it's like, I can see how having this kind of kid, you could think like, oh, children are hard. But then you get the first kind of kid we got, and you're like, holy crap. Okay, this is a whole other ballgame.
What was it? Like, what were some of the things that were difficult?
He wouldn't sleep. Or, well, more accurately, he hated going to sleep. So every time he had to sleep, it was, you know, that children crying is essentially torture.
Oh yeah,
right.
It's meant to be. So you protect them. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so horrible that you can't not go and try to make them stop crying. Yeah. And so the main thing was that he would not be able to go to sleep without crying for a long time. And we went to see every doctor, and every doctor would say, your son is perfectly healthy, which was like, well, that's awesome.
Like, that's great.
Yeah, that's great, but
so glad to hear it.
And so it lasted for a little while, and then he's it's better now, but he was very active. He could not stop running. I mean, there's a bunch of things which seem, the thing is, when you talk about them, people probably think, oh, so you mean he's a baby? And you're like, well, yes, but
you're right. It's baby plus 10, right? This is what I'm getting from you. Like, yes, they all run, but mine ran more.
Yes, and cried more. I mean, I really had both experiences, and with her, it would be a lot easier in some respects. And the thing is, when you're, especially in the beginning, like when he was born, for the first 10 days, I remember very clearly because my mom came to Helsinki to be with us. And the first day she was there, it was 10 days after he was born. And I would, my wife would go to sleep, and he would be in bed, and he would wake up at some point. I would feed him probably, and then put him back to bed. And so I was demonstrating to my mom. I was like, so now you put him back to bed and he goes to sleep. Because that's what he did for the first 10 days. And then he did not go to sleep.
And then he stopped.
And he never stopped crying.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I don't know what's happening. And it lasted like that for like a year and a half. And of course, when you have like, you know, I can't even remember, like 8 naps a day, 4 or 5 naps a day, he's crying all the time. He did not want to sleep, and he's crying and crying. And you go insane. Like you really go crazy, like, you know, and so I remember we were talking about it with my wife, and a bunch of people were telling us, oh, you know, it gets better after a year. And I'm like, a year? What the hell are you talking about? We're not going to last a month. Like, it's this true feeling of desperation that your life is, I'm sorry, it's bringing me back to that.
I'm sorry to bring you back there.
No, I'm happy because it's over now. It's so much better. But it was like this intense feeling of despair that your life is miserable. Your life is this child crying all the time, and there's nothing you can do. Like my wife, both her and me were like, you know, we understand people who just go out for cigarettes and never come back. Like there's no escape. There's no escape. Obviously, we're not, you know, horrible people, so we didn't go out for cigarettes.
But you understood the temptation.
Yes, very much so. Because there's nothing you can do to stop it. Nothing.
Nothing you were doing worked.
So anyway, they're a lot nicer now. We have a lot of good times, and I don't complain about it anymore.
How old are they now?
My son is 8, and my daughter is turning 5 in a couple of weeks.
Oh wow! So, okay, so they're almost exactly the same as my nieces. My Eileen's sister's kids. One is 9, and the other just turned 5. So pretty close.
Yeah. And so we watched K-pop Demon Hunters a couple of weeks ago, and now it's, you know, K-pop Demon Hunters songs all the time. So just a couple of weeks ago,
you weren't doing it last year. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My son is very, he's easily scared. He's very afraid of things. I think he might have some hypersensitivity thing because he gets he feels things very strongly, including fear.
Yeah.
Like when there's something scary, he's very afraid. And even K-pop Demon Hunters, that is not, incredibly scary, he couldn't sleep that night because he was scared of Guinma,
Kristen's oldest, June, the 9-year-old, she was the same way. She couldn't finish watching it.
Oh,
and then
really?
She wouldn't let us play the songs for the longest time.
Because it was scary.
Because it
to
reminded
her,
her of being scared.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until all her friends at school were just so into it all the time that she finally was, okay, I guess I can listen to the music. And I think she eventually watched it, but a long time later. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I think there are some children who are like that. Like my daughter was fine with it, but he was quite scared. But no, I'm really happy.
The older ones in both these scenarios were the ones that were scared of the younger ones. Like, man, it's fine.
So tell me, is it the same for your younger niece? She's our daughter is very much second child syndrome, which is like she needs attention to be on her. So she speaks nonstop. She's telling you about stuff that make no sense. Like she's always doing something to.
No, that's different.
She isn't. Oh, that's interesting.
The older one is like that. The younger one is more like, I'll just go do my own thing.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. It's a different second child behavior, which is like, well, I'm never going to get the attention, so I'll just make do with whatever I've got. Maybe because the older one is like that. But yeah, one of the weirdest things about the 5-year-old is if she gets upset, she will go into her room, maybe even into her closet, and just want to be alone. And Kristen was like, I was like, do we need to check? She's like, no, just she'll resolve it and then she'll come back out when she's better. And she just deals with it on her own. I'm like,
interesting.
That is really interesting. I've never seen that before.
We just watched a documentary about personalities and in children. It was a study essentially made with identical twins, like many identical twins that were separated at birth, and how similar they turned out.
Sure.
And it turns out that vary. Like the conclusion was that basically your job as a parent
doing nothing.
Nothing. Like your job as a parent is to make sure they're safe.
Yeah.
Make sure, they're well cared for and they're provided with everything, and offer them opportunities to figure out what they like.
Yeah.
But if you think you can influence what they will be like,
their behavior. Yeah.
No. That's not going to happen.
I mean, there's got to be some parameters in which it
sure,
shifts things one way or the other, obviously, but that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So going through all of that with the children, I know definitely changed how you approached your work, your podcasting work. That's one of the things I wanted to chat about is like, I've changed how I do it for different reasons over the years as well. I thought it'd be fun to compare notes on that.
Yeah, I think there are two things. Now it's much easier, but because I work from home, obviously, or I did when we lived in Finland. For anyone who don't know, we lived in Finland for a good while, and we lived in this big house in the forest. And I worked from home, and my wife worked from home most of the time. And we had the children at home, or at least, in Finland, you don't get daycare until they're 1, roughly.
Okay.
So they were there. So, I had to juggle things, I guess. And now I work from the studio here where I first started podcasting. And so I don't work at home anymore. I come here to work and go back because now we.
So
live
this is the studio you used to live in.
I used to live here when I met my wife, and I've kept it as a French pied-à-terre. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
And now that we've moved here, what? Sorry,
I said foot earth.
There you go. Exactly. That's what it is. So when we moved to Paris, I decided to turn this into my workplace, and it's awesome. Like I'm alone.
Yeah, that's great.
There's no one here. It's completely quiet. So the setup hasn't really changed. Honestly, that was the hardest part is that I couldn't really change how I do podcasting much with the children. And so I would just have to adapt how much I prepare. And I think with experience, something that changed was that I don't want to say wing it, but I didn't need as much preparation, I guess.
You learn to live with less preparation.
Yeah, and it's so, when you first start podcasting, I mean, we're talking the dark ages here. It's been so long for both of us. You're very conscious of what you need to do and like how you're talking about stuff and how you introduce every topic and making sure everyone gets a chance to talk. And like when I listened to the first podcasts I ever did, it was like, hello, my name is Patrick. We are going to be talking about, and you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And now with 20 years of podcasting, obviously it comes as second nature. So I don't need to be as focused and I just turn it on and start talking and I have a rough outline and I can figure it out. But that's experience, which made it easier to do it even with children, I guess. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It didn't change much. It changed my mood, the way I live outside of work, obviously, because I have children now. But I don't think it changed my podcasts, aside from the fact that I used to complain about having children in every show.
Well,
but
and
that
you
was
took
it.
you took some hiatuses from
Yes.
and changed the format of the Phileas Club that I was talking about right before you showed up. So some of that, I think, how much of that was directly related to having children and how much of it was because of other things outside of that?
The Phileas Club is kind of a little bit of a special case because I know you don't like to talk about politics too much, but
I think that is a misconception. I don't like to talk about politics in places where people did not expect to hear about politics. And it would get in the way of them enjoying it. But yeah, I do like to talk about politics. And then the world became so enamored with politics that it was like, yes, we'd love to hear what you think about politics, Tom, as long as you agree with us. And then it became like, well, now I don't know if I want to talk about politics because I won't agree with you. As a group, right? Because there's so many different people out there. Even if what I'm saying is in your side of the argument, they're gonna be like, well, you didn't go far enough, or you didn't do this. So I get frustrated with not being able to talk about it with nuance. But I actually do like to talk about it. In fact, I've hosted Politics, Justin's show a couple of times. So yes, I don't like to talk about it as much as I used to. And I also don't talk about it, never have, in places where I'm like, this is going to get in the way. But I'm sorry for the long digression there. Where you were going to say something.
So the thing about the Phileas Club, I loved doing the show, but there were two things. It was very difficult to produce, very difficult to put together because I was trying to get people from different parts of the world.
That's hard.
Every, I don't know, couple of weeks or something. And like trying to get a different panel every time with people, if I could, that had different viewpoints. I'm more left leaning, maybe much more left leaning if you compare to the US. And I was trying to get a little bit of right leaning folks as well. And so, time zones was an issue. And like it was difficult to plan with regularity and like a set thing. So that was one factor, and of course, having children, it made it even more difficult. But the other thing was that the Phileas Club came from a place of trying to bring people to talk to one another and to kind of let go of the initial idea that the people who disagree with you are fundamentally wrong and that you would never agree with them. Like you would never understand where they're coming from, right? It's like the idea was really to get people talking. And we did that. And in that process, I think my hope was that we would bring, for me or for us, our small corner of the internet, the world a little bit back from the brink of this binary view of society. Like you're either with us or against us, and I feel like that has not happened. And I was worried, very worried that for me and many other people, I was enabling the people who I thought were wrong, you know, like by trying to understand and give them space and give them, and I'm not talking about like the specific people who came on the show who are like, it's interesting because it was completely in line with what I was saying. I think they're lovely people, the people who came on the show and who disagree with me or who support the political parties that I'm opposed to. I would have lunch with them, I'm sure, and have like a great time. But it felt to me like, look at what happened. Like, I feel like the world is going in a bad place for a number of reasons. And I felt like the show was not doing what I was hoping it would do. And that I didn't fix the world.
Darn it, Patrick, you were supposed to fix this. How did this all happen?
And so yeah, I was a little bit, frustrated by this, and I felt like I was playing a role in the things that were not going according to plan, kind of.
Well, and I could see you being frustrated. Like, I thought this would help. It clearly isn't having the effect, not that you thought your one little show, but
no, of course,
things are not getting better. And so on the one hand, I might be giving voice to something I don't want to give voice to while also not doing much good. I could see where you might think that. Yeah.
Yeah. It made a lot more sense in my head when I stopped the show. It was like, I was feeling I was a part of a trend in society that was saying, okay, but let's understand each other with a political opponent that had no interest in that. Like, not specifically the people who were coming on the show, like with people who were doing things in bad faith, like the political parties.
Yeah. Well,
and so it was like, okay,
that the people you wanted to reach wouldn't be listening. That you would.
No, that's not even, because like, even if the people on the opposing party would not listen, that would not bother me. I would like the people from my side, quote unquote. I'm actually not on one side, but let's simplify it. The people on my side,
those
I would
people
like
aren't
them
listening either, right? If they're just sort of like, yeah, okay, we heard that other side, great, doesn't change
sure,
my,
But my goal was at least for them, or hopefully, it didn't matter to me that the people from the other side wouldn't listen. I would hope that the people who would listen, hopefully, would think, all right, well, this person who was until now like a caricature of an image on a TV screen, I now understand that's a human being.
Yeah.
I felt like that would bring good in the world. And I felt, when I stopped the show, I felt like, does that matter? It doesn't seem to matter, because this is the battle, or political battle, is not fought in that way. And this is like trying to do something that doesn't have an effect. To be clear, I really think that there is an issue with the extremist parties who are in some countries taking power. And so I think it's not just a question of difference of political opinions. I think this is going farther than that. And so this is not just, oh, well, I disagree with my political opponents. It's like, it's outside the realm of healthy democracy. And that's dangerous. Like, that's one step too far. That's how I feel.
I think of it sometimes as you can't use the mindset that was appropriate in the world of the 90s in the world of post 2015. We are experiencing, and certainly post 2020, we are experiencing a world that is playing by different rules, and I don't mean rules that humans made, like different forces at play. In the 90s, we were coming out of the Cold War. We were coming out of the domination of the Soviet Union, of their sphere. And there was a lot of relaxing and a lot of normalcy. And we were also, I think, in Europe and North America, coming out of a period where the pressures of the outside had kept oppositions from being too opposing. There's been a lot of really good stuff I've been listening to lately showing like, hey, you know what? Back in the 80s, Tip O'Neill and Reagan would talk to each other, and they would rip each other, sometimes, but they would get along, and there would be things that would happen bipartisan more often, not all the time, but more often. And I think that coasted for a while, but those pressures that kept that from getting out of hand went away. We got new pressures, we got new uncertainty, and I think COVID really has done more than people talk about to destabilize, because suddenly everything you trusted got pulled out from under you once. And that's going to, in your subconscious, make you wonder when it's going to happen again. And it causes people to take shortcuts and say, you know what, I can't wait around for the process. I need something to happen now. And I think that you see that in a lot of the discourse now, like, yes, and even a little bit of what you were saying just now, like, yes, but I can't wait for that. That process won't work anymore.
I think you take great care in trying to not ascribe. It feels to me like you really want things to be normal, kind of, and different and evolving, but still normal. Like you don't want to cross the threshold of, okay, wait, no, this is like, now this is not good, right? Like now this is actually something that's bad. I've never heard you in our 20 years relationship say, well, that's not good, like politically. Like this person is doing things that are actually like a negative effect on the world. And it's like, there are a lot of reasons, and maybe, some of what you're talking about has a role in it, but the first Trump election was not after, it was before COVID. And the second Trump election felt like it was a little bit similar to the first one. And if he was doing the same things as he was doing in the first one, I would not be as concerned. I think things have turned out very differently in the second Trump election, but the presidency. But I do wonder, not to point a finger at you, what would need to happen for you to say, yeah, this is bad?
Well, if I say, yeah, this is bad, what good does that do is one thing I'm always thinking. Because
describing reality?
Well, okay, but which thing would
if it's
you like
actually
me,
bad, if you
which
think
thing would you like me to say is bad? I have this talk with Justin Robert Young. People are like, why don't you speak out? I'm like, about what? What would you like me to speak out about? Also, when you say speak out, do you mean post on Twitter? Or do you mean
saying
no, I know
you and I talking.
I'm just saying when people are talking about stuff. So
right.
So there is a little bit of like, I would like to help someone come to a better understanding without causing them to just shut me off. And the quickest way for someone to shut you off is to tell them they're wrong. And so when you hear me being careful, I'm being careful to say like, hey, there's a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions across the spectrum listening. And I want them to hear what I'm saying and not turn off because like, well, he clearly is delusional about X, Y, or Z. And yet, even when I do that, I get the criticism that you just levied, which is like, oh, well, you think everything's okay. And I don't. I don't think everything's okay.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I also think that it's not productive to go with the great man theory of history. So what I was talking about just now was it's not a person that is causing this to be a problem. And this is something I really fundamentally feel. It is not like, oh, if we got rid of that person, then things would be different. I think there are fundamental social forces that are causing the conditions for things to happen that are bad because of the way the world has gone and events that have taken place. And if it wasn't Putin, it'd be somebody else. If it wasn't Trump, it would be somebody else. If it wasn't Macron, it would be somebody else. So I tend to take the personalities out of it because of two reasons. One is, as soon as you start naming names, people go, wait, I'm for/against that. And now I'm not listening in the same way. And second of all, I think we would still be in a lot of the same positions if you had different personalities. It would just be a different person that would be doing it. So I get frustrated at that criticism, that's like, why you think everything's normal, and I don't, but I also want to try to understand things at a more fundamental level than that.
I do think at some point one has to speak up, and it feels to me like not just in the US, but in different parts of the world, we're dangerously steering away from democracy. And in order for people to not think, well, this is normal, I think if they hear from people they respect, well, you don't have to say, oh, Trump is a Nazi. You could say, this is concerning. Like this thing that happened is concerning to me. The way there's some tit for tat in the presidency and in the administration is concerning. And it's not a democratic way. I'm not saying you have to go out and banners and protest. But to go a little bit in, like to kind of say somewhat what you're saying a little bit. Or I have another theory, which I've talked about on the Phileas Club a couple of times. I think people don't realize how good we have it, and how good we've had it since World War II, and how well the world has been doing. And I don't know if you've read Factfulness, which is a wonderful, wonderful book by Hans Rosling, who's a statistician who studied how the world has been going, like factually, on things like literacy, infant deaths, violent crime, all of those things. And everything has been going better. Like, of course, on average, on the world
over the
scale.
Longer scale. Yeah.
But everything has been going better. And I think that my generation and yours is probably like the last one that had an actual visceral understanding of what war with World War II actually was. Like it permeated our culture. It was in our books, in our movies, so we were like, oh crap, okay, that's not great. Like that, we understand what that is. And people who grew up after that, even though they know that World War II happened, and World War I and all of those things, have lived in such a peaceful and plentiful time that, it's human. You focus on the scale that you know. And so you go and seek out the smaller things, quote unquote, that are not going well. And I think there are more extremes in the US, and, more issues of like education and poverty, and because you have fewer social nets.
Certainly what China wants everyone to think.
Well, you don't think that's the case?
I don't.
So you don't think you have fewer social safety nets?
I think it's exaggerated. Fewer than what? But
that
would lead us down an entire rabbit hole.
Okay. Let's not single out the U.S. But I'm surprised you don't. But anyway, my point is,
you wanted me to speak up. Oh, loud.
Well, I mean, okay.
I'm just kidding.
My healthcare. You don't think healthcare is more expensive and less efficient in the U.S.?
Well, again, that's going to be a whole rabbit hole to go down to.
Okay. All right.
But just so you know, like, do I think healthcare works well in the United States? No. Do I think it works better elsewhere? Yes. I think it gets mischaracterized, and people are like, well, you just do this and it would fix it. And I'm like, I'm not sure that would.
Oh,
fix
that's
it.
a different story.
You know,
but
so
yeah, okay.
so and then we get into discussing that whole topic.
I see. But so my point is, so you get into a situation 70 years after the end of World War II, where people are like, you know, well, there are poor people, okay, define poor people. And I'm like, well, okay, we live in a society now where you don't have, I get flack when I say things like that, but people don't starve like in Western societies.
Not in the
mostly.
same way. What we call starving now is different than what it had been in the
Exactly.
past. Yeah.
Like I think anyone, like everyone will probably get enough calories in their day to not die of starvation, right? Unless
or at least
there's
they're
a very
available.
specific issue.
Yeah.
They're available. And it's very cheap.
In more areas than they used to be.
Yeah.
There
you
are
get
certainly
access to-
exceptions right now in Sudan
Of course,
and
obviously.
places like that. But it is an
No,
exception
but I mean,
versus a pervasive thing. Yeah.
And in the Western world, like in Europe, the US, things are so. You get like access to culture, to entertainment. You can express yourself. You can inform yourself. You can educate yourself. Like it's so like we live like kings and queens. Like it's insane the level of comfort that we have. Obviously, some have more than others, but it's insane. And so when you focus on like there's people in France and I'm sure everywhere who are like things suck and this is horrible, and so we need to flip the table. And so you get people riled up. Often it's populists who tell people what they want to hear in order to get access to power. And they're like, yeah, we're going to flip the table and we're going to upend everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I understand you're unhappy about some things, but look at history. Look how things have been going for the past 70, 150,000 years. We're having it pretty good right now. Of course, there are things we should fix. There are things we should, change, improve, obviously. But don't upset a system that's worked so well when you don't know what's going to happen if you throw everything out the window. That is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. And I'm very frustrated by the people who do that because I think we have it really, really good. Yeah. Really good. And people don't understand what it means to have war, to have actual steer away from democracy and from. So that's where I'm coming from in all of this, and this is not what most people think usually.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is, my first reaction to you at a certain point you must speak out. Is there a lack of that? Do you see do you actually see a rarity of people speaking out about things? Because I don't. When I'm speaking, if I were to say to my audience,
it's not like you're adding to adding to an existing.
Telling them something they weren't aware of, right?
Yeah.
And I do that. I do it, in tech news when I'm like, this is not okay. This is a bad precedent. And, I don't go out and blast it everywhere, but, most recently the designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk. I'm like, that's not necessary. That's a bad thing. It's a bad precedent. Let's see where it goes. I think that makes people go, oh, so Tom's one of those guys that's on the fence. I'm like, no, I'm waiting until the process is done before I actually say, okay, this is what happened and I'm okay or not with it. Very often people are saying, you need to speak out about what's happening with Doge, let's say. And I'm like, well, let's see what happens with Doge. I will say, here's what's happening with Doge. Here's why I'm actually not that worried about it. Here's what I would have to see for it to become worrisome. And let's hold on. A lot of people are throwing around stuff because they want to be upset and saying, but they could do this and it could lead to that. And it doesn't always, in fact, most of the time, lead to the thing those people say. So I stay out of that. I try to stay out of that and say, when something has actually happened, then I will have my opinion on it.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, sure. Please do.
What do you think of Elon Musk?
I think Elon Musk is irresponsible. I think he's a bad CEO. I think that he likes to get people riled up because it puts him in the press. So I try to talk about him as little as possible because that's what he wants. I don't think he's a danger. I think he's a bad influence. And I think that his companies are continuing to do well in spite of him at the moment. But I think if he does figure it out and settle down, he can still be a good leader of a company. I think he's just more enamored with flirting with power and influence right now. And I really don't love what he's done with Twitter because I used to have much better time on it. And it doesn't seem like a place that I enjoy posting on as much as I used to.
Yeah, the reason I'm coming at this the way I am is maybe we have a different relationship to the far right and the extremes in Europe because we're so close to, the Nazi party. Sorry for saying Nazis, but that's what I'm actually talking about.
Well, you're talking about a literal party that existed in Europe and held power,
yes.
Less than 100 years
exactly.
ago. So yeah, I think that's fair.
And the feeling that we have is that everyone was tame and they were, put in power and they tried to, like, a certain number of people and categories of people tried to use them and weaponize them, and it got out of their hands, and things that, the things that happened. Mm. And during those 10, 15 years, the reactions were tame. The caricature of it is like, oh, first they came for the whatever.
Yeah, and I
didn't speak up because it wasn't me, and blah, blah, blah. And the reason I feel, maybe mistakenly, as you've demonstrated, people should speak up is because there's a sentiment now that somehow kind of the same thing is happening. And like the far right was for a very long time in Europe, in France at least, I'll speak about what I actually know. In France, you wouldn't talk with the far right. Like you would not invite them in public debate. You would not discuss so it was a very strong wall against the far right. And the moment they started to being included in debates and such is correlated with their rise in power, voting shares and stuff like that. Now, of course, it could be that they were actually, like, that's what a lot of people say. It's like, well, their ideas were becoming popular, and so we had to include them, but it's not us who made them popular. I think there's an Overton window factor in this. When you make it okay to talk about things and you normalize things. And so there is a sentiment on my part, and I've reflected on this recently. I've kind of changed my tune on this a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't just agree to speak to those extreme parties that are, what they are. And so I think that's why I'm like, maybe the answer is not to say, oh, well, let's see what happens. But the answer is like, no, sorry. Nope.
Is there a lack of people saying that exact thing? Because I see a lot of people saying that exact thing. Like, we should not be talking to them. We should not be allowing them. There's a difference between no one's,
they are being allowed.
Speaking out and no one's doing what the people speak out want. And I think there is a gap between, like, yes, sometimes the people speaking out don't get their way, and that's frustrating. And the solution may not be more people speaking out.
No, that's not exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
It feels to me like that's happening by the way, what happened with Fox News in the US is happening in France now.
Yes. Usually everything that happens in the US that Europe mocks happens like a few years later in Europe, I've noticed.
And it is specifically very rich people who bought a number of media properties, and from one day to the next, those properties started churning out the far right's policy talking points. I'm sorry to say, in spite of reality, like they spin it in a very concerning way, in the same way that Fox News on in certain parts of the channel, the more editorial parts would just fabricate fables, and I don't know how to stop it, but it is having an effect on French society, and it is having an effect. It is like, obviously, the media we consume is going to have an influence on the way we decide how we vote on issues and the parties we vote for, right?
Yeah.
If the media keeps telling you violence is an issue, and like violent crime is horrible, look at this person. Like in the same way that the 24 hours news network make you feel like the world is less safe than it actually is, right?
Even just local news. If you just watch your evening local news in the United States, you will feel your community is less safe than it is because you're seeing crime every day in a way that you don't, and you're just walking around in your community.
And so if your media is telling you the world is a certain way, that's what you see of the world, and it will influence, maybe not completely
if you
make
watch
you
it.
flip. Yeah, if you watch it, but a lot of people do watch it because it's sensationalized, and it's buzzy. It's like the algorithm that optimizes for outraged and for anger.
Yes,
and so I do feel like this is influencing people's opinions, and I don't think that's wrong. I think
it's not the only thing that's influencing people's opinions too, but it is a big one. You also have propaganda campaigns happening regularly on social media of all flavors, trying to, in sometimes sway people's opinions, in some cases just trying to make people angry so they are less likely to want to go to calmer sources and like to go to the more inflammatory sources that confirm what they think.
So the way I look at it is that traditional media is very extreme right leaning now because it was bought up by
traditional
in France.
Media
I'm speaking
is?
in France. In France.
France 24 is right wing.
Oh, no one watches France 24.
What do people watch in France?
Oh, like CNews, LCI, like 24 hours news.
Those are the highest rated ones.
Yes.
And when I say highest rated, the majority of the populace watches them, not they're high rated
I don't know.
amongst television watchers because fewer people watch television than they used to.
Yeah, no, a lot of people. So like that's the other part. A lot of people watch it now. But the other part is I feel like online media is catastrophically left-leaning. It is like very much. I
don't think that's true.
No, I'm talking about France and what like.
But
people,
I wonder if that's because the algorithm feeds you that.
No,
because there's
it is like
plenty of other online media if you care to look, and it's
very
popular.
But I mean the to caricature a little bit. The old people watch LCI or CNews rather.
Or Fox News.
The young people watch Twitch, like political commentators on Twitch and on YouTube. And of course, if you watch like streamers who talk about games, you will see a lot of like right-leaning people who like dog whistle about stuff. But the political and news discourse online, Twitch, YouTube, stuff like that, mainly Twitch, is very left-leaning.
But isn't what you're saying is old people like to watch right-wing stuff, young people like to watch left-wing stuff, which is kind of
that's always been the case.
Yeah.
The problem is it's become inflammatory.
Right.
Like it is
more
what
effective
I was talking about
at inflaming and not radicalizing, because that makes it sound like we're making people into bombers, but like, solidifying you in your position. Yes.
To an extent, the biggest issue I see is what you were talking about earlier. So until the end of the 80s, we had a clear enemy, right? It was the
AIDS.
Okay, two clear enemies. So we had the Eastern bloc.
It was the communist versus the
versus
free world.
yes, the West versus the East,
Sure.
and that made things a little bit easier to unify the. But now that we've lost sight of the war and the Cold War and all of that, it's like people have to get angry at something, and they're getting angry at the wrong thing. It was okay to be angry at communism.
Stop getting angry at the wrong thing, everyone.
No, but that's what we were talking about.
But look back prior to the Soviet Union, and you will find many similarities of people like Boston, for example, had, I think it's like 70 daily newspapers at one point. Like, I may be exaggerating, maybe it was 30, but it was a lot. And you picked whichever newspaper fired you up the most. There was none of this like calm, staid, journalism. It was
you've talked about this before.
Yeah, it was all meant. And so I think we're just back to that. We are back to a world where we don't have the pressure. This is what I was talking about earlier. We don't have the pressures that keep you from like, well, I better not go too crazy because something bad might happen. Now those pressures are gone. We're going back to a multipolar world where people can just say are like, there are fewer consequences to just choosing what direction you want to go to. Now throw in the sauce of technology that can supercharge that. And like, instead of a daily newspaper, now you got a feed customized to you that will tell you exactly the things that you want to hear and get you fired up about them. And I think that explains a lot of where we are.
I don't disagree. I just think that we have the examples and knowledge, and again, we have won the lottery of the universe. Well, maybe not of the universe, the solar system and human history, like especially in the Western world.
Yes.
There is, like, we have it so good. It is infuriating to me that, and maybe, that's necessary, because if you don't look at the bad things in life and society, then you never make them better. But I would love for people to look at things and say, all right, we need to fix this, but we have it pretty good. We understand we shouldn't upset the system too much, maybe.
Just look at the 60s. People, I think there's a natural tendency for us to say, even if we lived through it, but especially if we didn't, to be like, yeah, but that was then. Things were different then. That was the past. But if you look at the 60s, the world was much worse and much more dangerous than even it is now. It is more dangerous now than it was 10 years ago, but it's still less dangerous than it was in the 1960s. And
of course. No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm backing you up. I'm like, people tend to be like, we're living in the worst time. I'm like, we're not. We're not living in the best time. And
we're pretty close to the best time.
We are living in a time that is not as good as a more recent time in many ways, right? We did not have a war in Ukraine. We did not have a war in Iran. So right now, the world is more precarious than it was 5 years ago. But it was way more precarious 30 years ago. So when you pull back, to the long term, it's like, yes, it could continue to get worse, but it's still better than it was.
And even with that, I think a lot of people forget how things were a little bit.
Yes.
When you take the decades, you're like, well, the 90s were great, or there was a very short period of time in the 90s where really we had no big problems, again, in the Western world.
I mean, we had a war in Europe, in Bosnia, for God's sake. But it wasn't as bad as what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah. But even if you go, like, people forget, you're like, okay, the 90s, it doesn't extend very far. Like 2001, we had 9/11, and that was pretty bad, right? Again, for the Western world, like, it was really bad. There has been also bad things.
The 90s wasn't great for Korea or China or India or most of sub-Saharan Africa.
That's why I keep saying for the Western world, because I talk about what we actually know. 9/11, then Iraq, and and the 2008 financial crisis, and there is like, I don't know, except for the 90s, maybe. I don't know that there's been.
Even the 90s, though, like, think back. Yeah, I think back to the 90s. This is just my personal experience. You were deathly afraid of having pot because if you got busted, you were thrown in jail. Now it's legal in the state that I live in. If you were gay, not only could you not get married, forget about that. You didn't want to be out to most people. You could only be out to people you really trusted because it was dangerous to be out. The amount of money I made was like $12,000 a year. That's what I had to live on. Like,
really?
Yes, the 90s was better in a lot of ways. But it wasn't apparent. Like, we have made progress that has stuck around. That everybody's like, well, yeah, of course we have that.
Yeah,
it's like, but we didn't. We didn't have that.
Everyone takes as something, as a given, all the progress that's been gained, as if it was normal. And my worry is, if we're not a little bit more careful, we can lose that, right? We can, like, democracy is not as much of a given as people like to think.
Civil society is not as much of a given as people think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's my concern. That's why I'm like, when there are populists who try to pretend or to sell the things that people want to hear, I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but I'd like them to be booed off the stage, essentially. And that's not what's happening, because...
Yes. And that's frustrating when you want to see something happen and it doesn't happen. But
especially when democracy is in danger.
I also know that maybe that's not the way you defend it, is booing them off the stage. There might be a better way to just...
And that's what we've been saying for 30 years.
Well, sure. And the frustrating thing is like, well, gosh, but it hasn't worked yet. That's like saying, everybody should have solved this. Yes, everybody should have solved this.
But at what point do you think, it's not working, it hasn't worked?
Yeah, well, given the fact that people have been yelling about it for 30 years too, apparently that isn't going to work as well. So
it would seem so, yes.
I think we need to consider some other things. And I think talking about things that are bad sometimes gives them fuel, makes people less likely.
No, but we're past that, Tom. We're past that.
Are we?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
If I mention the person that I think is bad politically, I am now promoting them. Now, maybe it's worth that. Maybe
if the person is a president, I think they're promoted already. It's not I'm not saying like, saying Trump is bad is all of a sudden going to get people to think that Trump is bad.
Or saying Harris is bad. Or saying Macron
is bad. No, but that's,
bad.
Tom, I'm sorry. That's the problem. That's the issue.
No, it's not.
You can't make these equivalencies. They're not equivalencies.
Because there are people who believe them on the other side as well.
But when you're saying that,
no,
when you're saying it like that, you validate
Macron
that
and Trump are equivalent. I'm saying when you talk about any of those people, it promotes them. That's my.
Are you
point.
Afraid you're going to promote Trump?
What he wants is to do something crazy and have everyone talk about it, because then that helps him. That he's proven it over and over again. There's this delusion that's like, well, if I want to stop him, I need to get upset about the thing he did. That's exactly what he wants, and it works.
No, I'm not
every time.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing.
That's all I'm saying. Is like, if you're out there retweeting the horrible thing someone said, you're promoting.
No, but that's
that
not what I'm
thing.
advocating for.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm making a separate point. That's why I was a little confused why you were coming at me out.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but
so anyway, I feel like where I was trying to get around to is like, maybe just retweeting someone does more harm than good. Maybe that is not going to be the thing that solves this. Maybe there are other things we need to do to solve it, and I don't hear a lot of other people talking about what those other things are, because people are so desperate.
Because we don't know who they are.
Well, and
we don't know what they are.
We don't know what.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. By the way,
that's the problem.
We didn't mention the first Gulf War in the 90s, which was a little bit.
Yeah, right. Kicked off the 90s, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, good point. Yeah. First of three now.
But I don't. obviously I don't know how to fix it. The Phileas Club didn't work, so like I'm out of ideas. That's it.
I think that is the fallacy, though, is that something you can do will fix it.
Well, but the alternative is just sit down and cry.
There's not a thing you can do to fix it. The way you fix it is living by example, working locally, to make sure that there are things going well in your neighborhood. The better things are for you locally, the less likely your locality is going to slip into desperation. But I think we are all fall under the illusion that like, oh, but I have to change the entire world. That is a very difficult thing to do. I'm not saying it can't be done. There are people who can do it, but you are going to be far more effective doing things within the realm of your own ability. And if more people did that, we would see a change that isn't satisfactory, doesn't give you the dopamine rush of being on the world stage. But if everyone did it, just like anything else, it would have an effect. Because populism,
and you don't think people are doing it
when people are desperate. I don't think enough people are doing it because no one talks about that. People talk about all this other stuff that is more performative.
I mean, I would love for it to be true, but I don't think. I think there are some things that have to be handled by a national instance, like by the government. The government is responsible for some things, and the issues we're seeing now can't be fixed by like community organizing. Like, I think that's obviously it doesn't hurt.
Sure. And that's what I mean. It doesn't give you the dopamine rush of everyone storming the Capitol.
Yeah, but you're kind of saying it doesn't give you the dopamine.
But people aren't doing that very basic thing because they would rather do the other thing. And honestly, if you're doing the basic thing, you actually history shows you find ways to then affect the national thing. But everybody's starting at the top and then they don't have the basis below.
Yeah, but I think you're ascribing a lot of power to the local thing. I'm not ascribing power to it. I'm saying it's a long, tedious, and boring process, and therefore people are like, yeah, but I want to fix it now. And it does it. It takes time and effort, and it takes a lot of different people doing it. I wanted to get to how we pick our news sources because the latest Phileas Club. Oh crap! Sorry, we have a few minutes. How do we pick our news sources?
So you were mentioning that you have changed. You're not doom scrolling as much anymore, and all of that.
Well, I've heard this podcaster dude who says that it's not very helpful to keep looking at social media.
No,
it's become a drain on my mental health, and I think a lot of people feel the same. But for news, like for my shows, I haven't changed it that much. I have a number of sources that I follow via RSS feeds. I subscribe to a couple of publications that I think are valuable and have added value. And I look at my feeds every single day, and multiple times a day there are, I don't know, maybe 500 articles in each day in the feed, depending on the day, and pick out the ones that I think are interesting. And when I see a story, some of them I just know, okay, we have to talk about this. Sometimes there's a story I discount, and I will come back to it when I see it pop up again, and I'll try to follow what's been happening there because I didn't realize it was an actually important thing. I watch quite a bit of YouTube, actually. It's usually more lighter stuff, sometimes product reviews and stuff like that, less in-depth analysis of the tech industry. But I do use YouTube a lot, obviously podcasting. There are, again, a couple of podcasts, possibly tech, possibly daily, and possibly news showy that I listen to get. It's sometimes when there's a story I'm not sure I understand properly. I go and listen to the analysis, that you and your team do. I also still listen to Leo Laporte's show almost every week, and sort of like get a lot of my takeaways from those publications. In gaming, it's a little bit of the same thing. YouTube is a little bit more useful for gaming because I do both a tech show and a gaming show.
What about for just your personal, like, keeping up on the world news that doesn't come in the course of doing all that other stuff, which a lot of it does, I'm sure?
I stay away from it now.
Yeah? You don't have a news source?
Well, France 24 that you were
but
mentioning.
Nobody listens to that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a shame because it's a really good channel. I find that they're very measured. But a lot of it comes through. There is actually, I'm gonna make myself into a liar. There's a young-ish dude who started out on YouTube called Hugo. Hugo Decrypte is his, like, Hugo Explains, essentially. He sort of made world news and local, like national news and world news for the younger generation. He's now, I guess he's in his 30s. He started a few years ago. And he has a pretty good journalistic ethics. And now he has a whole team, and they also have a newsletter. And surprisingly, it's a daily newsletter, which I've found has become one of my main sources of information. And he's a little bit like you, which is infuriating. Like, he does not voice many opinions.
You have
like
a news
he
type,
reports.
it sounds like.
I'm sorry?
You have a news type.
It would seem like it. As angry as it makes me, I appreciate the ethics, and yeah, it's become a surprisingly reliable source of information. And I have to admit, I also get information from my Blue Sky now. I've quit Twitter a year ago. From my Blue Sky algorithm and my Discord community, who are, again, infuriatingly left-leaning. Like, there's and and that's maybe where I get my but things are better than you say bias. Like, it's like what are you? And those are the people who fuel the like, in French you don't call them far left, but the one party that's taken over the left, which is quite like admittedly a populist movement. And so when I see all of these, I'm like, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but like you're contributing to this thing. And contrary to what one might think in our conversation, I try to be really measured. So the sources of news that I value are usually quite measured. And that doesn't mean not having strong opinions, because I think measure means weighing your, the news and the analysis. But then if something is a certain way, you're not going to say, well, I'm not going to say the sky is blue because, So yeah, but the biggest takeaway, actually, I think, is that I've stepped away a little bit from the constant flow of news in the same way that we've discussed this, and you've sent letters to Phileas, in the same way that you do. Like, it's unhealthy. And I think a lot of people have come to the same conclusion and have also stepped away, even from social media.
More and more, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we are learning in the same way that you were talking about the dozens of newspapers in Boston.
Yeah. I mean, stuff takes time to permeate. And for anybody who didn't hear me on the Phileas Club, or if you did, this will be a little repetitive. I get my news, a lot of what Patrick was saying in the course of doing Daily Tech News Show and Cord Killers and stuff, that I'm looking at all these feeds and seeing news that way. But I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times, and I sort of rely on them for the measured, accurate reporting. I don't look at the op-eds of those. I look at their news, and I find them very good. And I listen to the BBC News World Service in the morning, a little 5-minute newscast to just find out what happened overnight. And that's kind of it.
Can I want to say a couple of words about those publications like the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times and Bloomberg. Their reporting is incredible. Like it's such a stark difference between those outlets and like the news you don't pay for. Mm-hmm. And the work that goes into each edition, if you want to call it like that. I'm guessing you read it online, but the work that goes into this is so deep, and they need to bring value to their readers in order for them to pay for. And I'm not even talking about the like political stuff. Even in the industries like the tech or gaming industries they cover, you will actually understand stuff, which is so valuable, so much more valuable than like a quick take, a hot take on Twitter, or even many other publications.
The tech coverage of both of them is what turned me on to like, oh, they're actually telling me things that nobody else is telling me that I know are true, and then telling me things no one else is telling me that I'm like, well, they're usually right about the other stuff, so I bet this is right too. And then that led me to read their broader coverage and feel like I trust that I'm getting a full picture and not a just like clickbait headline grabbing thing.
Or just a repeat of whatever the AP
or just a rehash, rewrite, all of that.
And I'm getting like, I'm starting to rethink. Well, maybe not rethink, but I think paid media has a place, and it's one of those. I'm sorry. I guess you want to end the stream soon, but
I don't want to keep you up too late. So
it's one of those things that we should pay. It's not a bad thing to pay for media, but now we're like, but we're used to getting it for free, and it's one of those things where, because we have it really good. Like we get so much information for free. Yeah. It used to be not so long ago, you had to pay to get those things. This is how, yes, all of it. Well, I guess you could watch TV at 8 o'clock, but,
sure.
And like we have these machines in our pocket that are, there was an interesting, what was it? The World in 2050? I can't remember. One of the books I read recently where they were talking about a really bad way to measure GDP. Or GDP not being as good a measure of growth as it used to be, because there's so many things that don't increase the GDP that increase, theoretically our life comfort. And he took the example of phones, cameras on phones. They were like, well, you take photos and pictures and videos on your phone, that subtracts from the GDP, because a while ago you needed to take film, buy film, make it, develop it and everything. So GDP in that respect reduces. Of course, you pay for the phone, but GDP is lowered, but you've created value there. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Metrics like that are always weird, because before GDP, you're like, I don't know, I guess our economy is good. Seems like people are buying things. And then they invented GDP, and you're like, what an amazing thing. It can give you, generally speaking, whether economy is doing good or bad. But then over time, we're like, but it's not as precise as we'd like. It's like, yes, that's not a problem with GDP. It's like saying, like that measuring stick that had no gradations on it for centimeters isn't as accurate. Like, great, let's come up with centimeters and mark it out there so that we have a more accurate measuring stick. And so I think I'm not surprised that there are limitations to GDP, and yes, we need to keep getting better at measuring things. I think that's a good point.
And the problem is we spend less on those things, maybe, and so rent increases, rent prices increase, and no one can afford to live in Paris anymore. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole different.
That takes us in the same realm as the healthcare conversation earlier.
Tom, next time we speak, I promise you, I will not bring up politics once.
Why?
Once.
That's what was so fun.
I don't know. I feel
that this is what I enjoy about talking to you, Patrick. We just filled
Okay.
more than an hour and barely even got to one of the planned topics. And I had a great time. I enjoyed this. I like that you actually will ask me the things that other people won't ask me, so I have a chance to explain myself, and even think about it myself and refine my own views. Like, wait, why do I think that? Why do I do that? So, please don't hold back from any topic that you want to talk about with me. I really enjoy it.
okay. I won't. And if you ever figure out how to save democracy, please let me know.
Yeah, I mean that's really where I wanted to get to is like everybody's like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I'm like, is that the thing that will work? Like, because I don't know, it doesn't seem to have worked. Maybe we try other things, but you rightly brought up like, what are those other things? Like, let's spend more time on that.
I have a solution actually, which I've been advocating for a very long time.
All right, let's hear it.
On all of my shows. There is such a thing as the Church of Patrickism, which states that Patrick is always right and everyone should listen to me. And so since I'm always right, I could fix stuff.
Yes.
And so I think that's what we should do. Easy enough solution.
I'm a true believer.
It's
nice and simple. It's easy for me. I don't have to think too hard about it, which is the sign of any great ism that is out there. Oh, yeah. I'm too bad you're not Patrick.
Damn it! I knew there was an issue in my plan. It was so perfect.
Let me see if I can make this open. Really? I have a
no, Zoe, I can't be president. I have to manage the whole world. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Oh,
so,
yeah. So
I can be.
Just put you in charge, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And I mean, the first basis of this is that I'm right. So you can't go wrong. Literally, Patrick for global president. Okay, I'll.
I mean, this is it. This is the solution, everyone.
This
is actually not dissimilar to most of the other solutions that people are peddling. Except they're wrong because they don't have you. That's the big difference.
That is the big difference. Tom, we
Patrick,
figured it out.
Finally, we solved it. But I hope you keep doing the Phileas Club, even though you've solved all the world's problems.
Well, I haven't yet. I have to convince people that, I have in my head. I just need everyone to listen now.
Yeah. Go check it out. Anything else you want to tell people before we wrap up?
No, I mean, the Phileas Club is a fun enough show. So one thing I would love for the Phileas Club is actually to get people because the people who contribute to the show, who are lovely and wonderful, and I can't thank enough for contributing, are all middle-aged white men and left-leaning middle-aged white men. And, I'm not asking for much. Like, even a middle-aged white man who would be right-leaning, I would love to hear from, or anything else. But the show is fun. I would love to have more different opinions on the show, different stories and different people. But go check that out. If you want to listen to tech or gaming, I also have those shows linked on notpatrick.com. But other than that, it's, everything is on notpatrick.com.
Fantastic.
So thanks for having me, Tom.
Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it, man. It's good chatting with you.
I really miss hanging out with everyone. I don't hang out with my American friends anymore. So things have become so difficult.
Let's do this again.
Anytime. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Have a great weekend. If you celebrate weekends. And until Monday, we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.